Добрий день.
Hello, welcome everyone who joined us. Media Center in Ukraine Forum continues its work. 208th day of the full-scale invasion of the Russian occupiers to our lands. And today we'll be discussing the stabilization of the foreign exchange market. We'll discuss hryvnia exchange rate and how the banking system works in general. Live with us is Vasyl Furman, Deputy Chair of the Board of the National Bank of Ukraine. Mr. Vasyl, hello. Hello. Glory to Ukraine, glory to heroes. So let's start our discussion with the foreign exchange market, with the stabilization of hryvnia exchange rate. What's the situation right now? Well, like you said, the market has stabilized already. On the one hand, the National Bank of Ukraine doesn't give forecasts on hryvnia exchange rate. It was like that before war and now. But if you listen to esteemed experts and analysts in macroeconomic forecasts, and I shared this forecast that the exchange rate will stay without changes. The NBU policy from the early days of the invasion will remain the same. So we have a fixed rate, 36.6, and then the exchange rate in kiosks slightly differs from the main course, but not that much. What positive aspects that impact the exchange rate? Stabilization of the reserves of the National Bank, which were more than 800 million, 25.4 billion hryvnias. This is the increase by 15% compared to July. So this was the figure of August. We received lots of external borrowings, 4.8 million euros of monetary assistance, which stabilizes Ukrainian hryvnia a lot. Another aspect, positive one, is the reduction of the external economic deficit. The grain deal also helps us, or hopefully it will stay on. We heard various statements from our enemy, but let's hope that will increase the maritime transportation of our grain. Another positive aspect is that the NBU reduced the level of monetization of the budget. That is to say, printing money for budgetary expenditures. What the National Bank claimed over the course of last years, 30 billion up to 30 billion hryvnias, is what the NBU can in a planned fashion print by the end of the year, so that the situation will be under control. It will not negatively impact on inflation deflation expectations. So we have met this figure in August and July, so hopefully in the remaining months of this year we'll stick to it. And looking into next year, we've seen the budget, the draft budget 2023, and government stated that it doesn't stipulate that the National Bank will be involved in the monetization of the budget. Again, this will positively impact the macroeconomic situation, the exchange rate, and the inflation expectations in our country. And what we also observe is that thanks to correct foreign policy, we see the substantial difference between the exchange rate, and what impacts also is that macroeconomic assistance from our partners. As of today, Ukraine received more than $18 billion already, and by the end of the year it will be increased by 12 billion already. So plus $1.4 billion. IMF stated that that's what we plan to receive as well this year, and the new IMF program is very important for us because Ukraine would then be able to receive great amounts from the International Monetary Fund. What could be negative aspects that might affect the exchange rate? Again, I'm talking about potential risks here. They're non-existent right now, but potential they could happen. The involvement of NBU in monetization of the budget, also delay of this war, time-wise, insufficient foreign monetary assistance, and non-market rates on domestic treasury bonds. So that might impact the hryvnia exchange rate. Summing up, the risks at the currency exchange market are well controlled. The market is well balanced. The majority of respected analysts believe that the rate will stay without changes, and since the NB of Ukraine has extensive experience going through the crisis of 2014-15, the situation will remain under control. But what we would like is that those risks would never happen, while the positive aspects would only increase and strengthen, so that Ukrainian hryvnia will be floating but would not be substantially deviating from the fixed rate. And being candid with you, almost all of the current currencies of the developed and developing countries are devolving compared to the US dollar. That's what hryvnia did pre-war. And if you look at zloty exchange rate, for instance, over the last year it's devaluated by 12% compared to dollar. Turkish lira devaluated by more than 100% compared to US dollar. Euros devaluated substantially, yen, British pound sterling. So all of those external aspects would impact the inflation and expectations of our currency. The budget of 2023 has been passed. It's critically in deficit, and lots of experts are afraid that the National Bank might start printing money. Well, look, let's be honest here. 2023 budget, draft budget, we've all read it. Hopefully it will stay as in draft. And we heard the statement from the Prime Minister of Ukraine, namely that this draft law does not stipulate that the National Bank will be monetizing the exchanges. $38 million of deficit. And we also heard that they plan to receive funds from the IMF, EU, US, our international partners. That's what I would like to say. Now let's talk about deposits. Is there any potential for increase, and how the Ukrainians are saving their money? Well, let's move into the functioning of the banking system topic. 7 months of war, we all got convinced that the banking system, together with the National Bank of Ukraine, are securely keeping the financial defense of the country. We work 24/7 without any incidents. Funds from individuals and corporations are being well preserved. And the President initiated and the Parliament supported that, regardless of the amount, the fund of guarantees for savings of individuals would be 100% guaranteed by that fund. So, as of 9th of September, the number of deposits from individuals increased by 9 billion hryvnias. There is 32% increase compared to 24th of February, the beginning of invasion, which says what? That the Ukrainians are trusting the banking system. Yeah, you can discuss here that these are long, short-term cost funds, but we should all recognize that in the time of war, well, that's the problem that is germane to the developing countries, so that the funds will move from short-term into long-term, and thus it will be easier for the banks to give long-term loans and credits, not short-term like now. Speaking about the banking system's achievements, 3.4 billion hryvnias was the income of the banking system, which is 12 times less than in September last year. Last year it was about 40 billion hryvnias. The reason are the reserves, which also increased 12 times, up to 74 billion hryvnias. Despite war, the level of liquidity of the banking system is very, very high. The commercial banks, the state-run banks, private banks with the foreign capital on the deposit certificates of the NBU and funds on the corresponding accounts daily are more than 300 billion hryvnias, a huge amount indeed, which is substantially more than before the invasion, which is quite easily understood because the risks of giving out credits are high. We live through the times of uncertainty, but still, the high level of liquidity is potentially gives the opportunity to issue credits, which only confirms the reliability of our banking system, which confirms the correctness of the reforms that we have been carrying out over the course of the last 8 years. Also, it's worth mentioning that the state-run programs like 579 are very important. Well, it is in existence for 2 years now, but the major focus on it was at the time of war, and more than 12,000 credits have been given for the total amount of more than 50 billion hryvnias. That is to say, this program plays one of the key roles and being the driver in the crediting time. So the banks are not crediting that much. They're quite conservative in this regard, but the fact that the government supports the banks allows the businesses to survive these difficult times. Also, it's worth mentioning that in the banking system, for the first time since 2018, the level of problem credits is about 30%. In the first quarter of 1918, it was 54.5. And then first quarter of this year, it was twice that much, 28%. But so now they're 3% more, but the situation is fully controlled. Before that, I mentioned why the banking system didn't get super profits, because billions of hryvnias were used to form reserves, and I can only hope that in the future some of the companies would finally be able to run successful business and they would have no need in additional credits. Oksana Polishuk, Ukrinform. Hello. Have you resolved the issue of lack of cash in the bank's cash offices, and will you continue with this program of exchanging non-cash for cash. And the currency tourism, is it over due to the steps made by the NBU? So what's the situation with the capital drain? Thank you for so many questions. Let me share my expert opinion. Cash and the problems we had a couple of weeks ago. Previously, the logistics with dollar cash was covered by air transport, but now these logistics are more expensive. So there was a slight deficit of currency, but the National Bank intervened and resolved it by selling cash dollars and euros to banks. And today I talked to lots of banks. There is no problem with that at all. But at the same time, the NBU reduces the requirements so that the competitive commercial banks would compete with hot currency exchange kiosks. So this problem has been resolved, like I said. Moreover, the National Bank allowed the commercial banks to sell non-cash dollars, putting it on deposits for 3 months, something that has been supported by people so much, and that's what people keep buying, cash-free dollar, because the exchange rate is much more favorable. As to currency exchange tourism, this issue has been resolved. Of course, some people keep trying to do this, but the volumes are quite different now. The less is the difference between the cash and cashless exchange rate, there would be less desire to be involved in this exchange tourism. So we are monitoring the situation, trying to fight shadow market so that this difference and what we observe now would not increase, because the higher the difference, the more the disbalance in the economy. Like I said previously, the situation is well controlled, well balanced, and the exchange rate, and again, that's my opinion as an expert, without any exchanges, because the NBU doesn't provide any forecasts, which is what needs to be done. With the floating exchange rate, it's the market that sets the floating rate. So what are the figures for card tourism? All I know, it reduced substantially. And the reduction of gold and hard currency hard currency reserves by increasing the exchange rate up to 36.6, and in June we still sold $5 billion from our reserves, all in all, totally, supporting imports, car tourism, etc. Now $3.2 billion hryvnias, substantially less. Previously, you can buy 100,000, then 50,000, and then break it down into quarters. So the National Bank knows about this problem, and those Ukrainians who live abroad should not suffer get rid of those who try to earn on war so that the ordinary citizens would be protected. We try to resolve this issue and hopefully we're doing it quite successfully. Mr. Vasyl, what's the situation with opening the markets of cryptocurrency? The law has been passed, but the National Bank of Ukraine should have done certain steps to create the regulators. So what's the situation as of now? That was first draft when the National Bank was supposed to be a regulator of cryptocurrency markets. For the time being, that's the Securities uh, Commission. So while exchanging cryptocurrency into cash, that's where we're going to be involved. So on cryptocurrency, Ukraine is in top 3 of the countries in the war from the standpoint of using cryptocurrency with the help of the law that will be passed in Ukraine in particular. Hopefully we'll be able to implement this law quite successfully and we'll be able to create favorable and investment-friendly conditions. Yeah, there are crypto assets, while there is only currency in Ukraine, which is hryvnia. We have no cryptocurrency, only crypto assets. Thank you for this. Thank you for joining us. That was Vasyl Furman, Deputy Chair of the NBU Board of Ukraine. So follow our announcements. We believe in our armed forces of Ukraine and we continue to work to bring